Hello, my name is Evan French, and today I'm going to be sharing with you my company analysis of Nike. Nike has been established since 1964. They have also been a leader in the sportswear market industry. They use iconic celebrities like Michael Jordan and other famous athletes and iconic celebrities to help represent their brand, which has put them to be one of the industry's leaders and develop a very strong brand awareness and a very loyal customer base. The use of the digital platform has been a bigger focus for the Nike team as they are trying to help personalize and customize that experience even more. They have been putting a lot more of their resources and funding into their research and development team, which is helping them stay ahead of the competitors as far as like development of new products and innovation of technology. So this has allowed them to record data to help make better business decisions in the future. And later on, I will be covering some of the different aspects like Nike's PESTEL analysis, their financial analysis, and a SWOT analysis. So that way I can give you guys a better idea of how Nike is actually performing. While we're looking at Nike through our PESTEL framework here, I'm going to go ahead and start with our political factors. So Nike has established over 517 different manufacturing facilities across the world. They are in a global market. They have their core market in the United States where they are generating over 41% of their total revenue that was recorded back in 2019. They have over 36 different factories across the entire United States, and they have positioned themselves to not be too greatly affected by some of the political power because they operate in so many different countries. They have diversified their supply chain to different countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, and Thailand, but because they are an international company, they will still have to pay a tariff on all their shoes that come to the United States. This isn't really too big of an issue for Nike because only about 10% of their total products in China are actually exported to America, so this will be a very small portion of their actual numbers. So for some of their economic factors, in the past, Nike has been affected by the 2008 economic crisis and also more recently the COVID-19 pandemic. This has led them to make drastic changes in order to survive the losses made from these situations. So referring back to the 2008 economic crisis, they were forced to restrict their workforce and cut costs back. So this led to them cutting about 5% of their total workforce, which was recorded to be one of the biggest cuts in the history of the company. So pretty drastic change in order to survive. They also had to cut costs in order to make it out as well. Since then, Nike has been able to recover well. They faced this new issue of COVID-19 more recently, where they saw some things kind of similarly, where we had huge losses, and that was due to a different factor where people weren't able to go out and go shopping physically. Everything was going to that digital market. There was also not as many, sporting events going on as well. So the demand for their products has gone down as well. So some of the stuff going on with the economy has forced Nike to put more of their focus into that digital platform, so that way they can, overcome issues like this in the future. Some of the social factors include using iconic celebrities, like Michael Jordan and other famous athletes to help represent their brand because everyone looks up to him. They want to use images of icons like this to relate their story to the Nike product to inspire people that they too can become great by using Nike's products. They have developed a sneakerhead culture, which has now been estimated to be at roughly $2 billion. So very good resale market there. Some of the technological factors that come into play with Nike as well. They have been known to be one of the higher investors into their research and development team, which is, I think, a good reason to make Nike one of the leaders in the industry because this gives them a really good competitive advantage. This is now their focus of the company, so they are no longer to be just a sportswear company. Their focus is now to be a tech company, so they are able to use technology that they come up with in their team to come out with new products for things like the Nike Flywire support system, the Lunar Light foam cushioning and other new things that they are able to come up with in their own research lab. So that is a Nike Sports Research Lab. Like I said, that's where they're able to test out new products, come up with new products, and really look at, how are they going to come out with something before the competitors. So they put most of their focus into that team. They're also able to innovate this technology into their products very well, which is helping them, I think, like I said, to stay ahead of their competitors. And this is also one of the reasons why they're backing up into that tech company, because they are trying to set themselves up for the future, and it looks like that is the route that they're going to have to go. So for environmental factors, they have been facing a lot of backlash for some of the things that have been going on in the past. More of their production processes, including things like the sweatshops, and they have also been known to leave hazardous waste in lesser developed countries while sending all the products to other countries. And since then, Nike has made plans to help improve these work environments. So they have come up with a new structure for their work environment, and they have also made commitments to help reduce hazardous waste. And eventually, I believe by 2025, they have stated they would like to be using nothing but renewable energy sources to help lower the total amount of emissions that their company is producing. So there's a good plan in place to help overcome some of the things negatively affecting the environment. For legal factors, Nike has constantly been fighting with other companies over patents for certain products. Nike is very popular, so there are a lot of other companies that are trying to copy what Nike is doing, and Nike is basically trying to fight against them to get their products back and make it solely theirs. So they are facing issues with fighting other companies in lawsuits. They've also been fighting in lawsuits with gender discrimination and sexual harassment cases in the workplace, but since then has been making more of an effort to improve their culture by coming out with a new structure to have more women in positions of power to help kind of even out the gender discrimination going on in the place. So I think this is a great plan in place to help overcome some of the issues that they're facing. So that is the PESTLE framework. When looking at the financial analysis here at Nike, we're going to go ahead and start with the liquidity ratio. In the history of the company over the last 10 years, the ratio has been good. Nike has shown that they're able to meet their short-term obligations, and over the last 3 months of 2023, with the quarter ending in February 28th, their ratio was up to 2.73, which is a very good rating, which, like I said, they're able to pay off all their short-term debt. They're doing very well in that standpoint. For the leverage ratio, over the last 10 years, it has been high. With the quarter also ending in February 2023, that ratio has gone up to 2.62, which is very high. We don't want it to be that high. We want to get that back down. If it's not resolved soon, this could lead to a lot of bigger issues. They could not be able to pay off some of their debt, or it could lead to bankruptcy. But there are some other numbers that are showing that Nike is making good money. So I think if they restructure some of their costs and where they're delegating some of this money, I think they will be able to overcome this very easily. For their asset utilization, they have seen dramatic increases over the last few years, except for more recently they saw a slight decline of less than 1% in that same quarter ending in February of 2023. So I think they're basically coming even there. I don't see that being an issue for them in the future. They should have a higher return as they continue to make more money and invest more into more assets and things like that. So for profitability and the market value, they have been increasing their profits over the last 3 years continuously. So they have a good history of growth in the last 10 years. They are one of the top valued companies in the market, and overall, out of all the global market, they're ranked in the top 10, I believe. And they should continue to see growth and profitability as they continue to, improve their digital technology and put more into their research and development teams. So Nike is doing well from a financial standpoint. Like I said, I think they need to restructure some of their either their workforce or their production costs. Somewhere they're spending too much money and they're not spending enough to pay off some of that debt. So they have good growth and profitability. So I think if there is a restructure, I think they will be just fine as far as moving forward. So now I'm going to go over the SWOT analysis of Nike. So starting with the strengths, one of the things that makes Nike very strong is their brand equity. So they have a very recognizable brand. They have a very loyal customer base to that brand, and they use iconic relationships like Michael Jordan and other famous celebrities to help leverage their product and represent their brand. So that way people too think that, you know, they could be like Michael Jordan or they could be like one of these celebrities and use Nike products to become great. So they really use the relationship of these athletes to represent their brand and get that buy-in from the customer base. So very loyal customer base, great marketing, great way to bring that company ahead of the other competitors in the market using things like a strong brand equity, using these iconic relationships, and having a strong and loyal customer base. So that is great. And we are now going to be going into some of the weaknesses. So some of the issues that Nike has faced in the past, they have been blamed for poor work conditions, using sweatshops and just poor environments in general, you know, issues with gender discrimination, things like that. They have also had issues with retailer relationships. So they have been trying to ultimately get out of retail as much as possible because they're just having too many issues with costs and financing. So them being in all those retail stores really limits their ability to change their prices. So they also have an issue with being specialized in just sportswear. So this becomes an issue where they had back in like those pandemics or the economic crisis, since they're such a specialized product, they saw huge losses whenever there was no demand for those products because of the issues with the economy. So in order to avoid issues like that in the future, they would need to, you know, diversify their products instead of just being specialized into one. So that brings us into opportunities. So I think, like I said, Nike needs to get into some new markets, so that way they can expand their product range. They've already established themselves as one of the leading companies in the footwear industry, so they just need to, you know, diversify their products a little bit more. And I think that they're doing that by integrating some of the, you know, new technology and getting to that digital platform, because it's very important for the future, so they are able to effectively use it, because this will help them sustain a competitive advantage if they're able to integrate it right, because they are already, like I said, trying to get out of those retailer stores, so that way they have more control and flexibility in their prices to, you know, potentially improve profits. So and getting into new markets, diversifying that product range and integrating the app and technology that they have coming out moving forward will definitely provide them a lot of opportunity to make more money and improve operations. So that brings us into threats. So some of the threats that Nike is facing, they are facing issues with competition. So there is a lot of you know, other companies in the market that are trying to, you know, do what Nike is doing. So they are constantly having to come out with new products, make things better, and try to stand out from the competition. There's also a lot of trade tension going on. We have issues with, you know, China and the U.S. With trade issues going on right now. They're both raising tariffs on each other. So if things continue to escalate, it could lead to a bigger issue as far as them not being able to properly do business together. So that is a potential issue in the future if the trade tensions don't come down. They're also, like I said, dealing with that competition. So coming out with patents, and the other companies coming out with patents, that can limit them and what they're able to do if they don't come out with that product first. So lot of threats to kind of overcome here. So now we'll go into social responsibilities and sustainable business practices. So for Nike, they have been trying to focus on cutting greenhouse emissions and reducing waste. That's been a big priority of theirs. And also, they've been known to, with their production, create a lot of waste and use a lot of resources that some of these lesser developed countries don't have. They've been doing these practices in countries that don't have that wealth to overcome that, or they don't have the resources to be doing this kind of production. So Nike has been coming out with plans to, reduce emissions, reuse, items to help reduce that waste. So they're coming out with things like the Fly Leather, which uses about 50% recycled material, and they're also coming out with a way to cut fresh water use and reduce textile manufacturing by about 25%. So there is a couple plans in place to overcome some of these factors affecting everything. And they have also had a history and issue with poor labor conditions. There's been multiple cases of women claiming that Nike discriminates against them with inequality of pay or sexual harassment cases. There's just not a good stipulation with the culture of Nike and how they treat women. So Nike has came out with a new structure that is going to put more women in power and equal out the amount of men to women in positions of power. So they are aware of the issues, and it looks like they are making an effort to clean things up. So that's really good to see. All these things, though, ultimately, I think when they get the culture changed, and if they, clean up some of this unethical acts, they will be able to provide growth, sustainability, and more profitability in the future of the company. So to kind of recap everything, so what I would recommend for Nike moving forward in the future, I would recommend for them to back up into that digital platform and start innovating that even more as much as possible. I think if they're able to make it where they're only going off that digital platform and they reduce the amount of retail stores, they will be able to get much more price control and flexibility, which will help them make a lot more money. And it's also going to reduce a lot of their costs with these retail stores, that the costs that are associated with it. So I think if they find ways to integrate this digital platform more efficiently and better, I think that they will be able to sustain their competitive advantage and improve profitability in the future. And as far as ethical standards, I think that Nike has been facing a lot of backlash for things that have been going on in the past. So I think Nike needs to come up with more solutions and make it, more well known that, hey, they're aware, they're sorry for what they did, and that they actually have solutions and plans in places to help overcome some of this stuff that happened in the past, issues with work environments, labor conditions, how they're treating women, different things like that. So if they keep coming up with these plans to help overcome some of this unethical behavior, I think that will help change the culture and the customer perception of Nike. People will feel a lot more better about the product and what they stand for if they know that, Nike's taking care of its people, the people around it, and, just caring about the environment. So I think all those things will help improve their company there. And as far as their research and development, I think they need to put more of their research and development into coming out with new products. I think that they are too specialized right now. They are really focused in that sportswear market, so they need to find ways to diversify into other products, so that way they are able to sustain that competitive edge rather than just being solely a sportswear industry. So if they're able to get more products, continue to improve their ethics and values and standards of their practices in their company, and they continue to improve this digital platform and get it to where they're ultimately just using that, they'll be able to customize that experience more. They will be able to personalize it more. People will feel much better about the product, and they'll have the ability to reach more markets by coming out with these new products. products. So those are the things that I would recommend for Nike moving forward.